Hello, this is the Portfolio Conversion webinar, where we will discuss how to convert your portfolios from the established accreditation model to the Streamlined Accreditation Model. In this webinar, you will learn what the new Streamlined Accreditation Model is, what are program and class portfolios, what the new standards look like, how the new assessment items are organized, how to create your new portfolios, additional tips and suggestions for your portfolios, and what resources are available for programs to utilize. A portfolio is a source of evidence that you will use to show proof that your programs are meeting the standards and assessment items. Programs will create both a program and class portfolio to show what practices are being done in the classroom and what policies and procedures are in place to ensure those practices are being met. Class and program portfolios make up 2 out of the 4 sources of evidence programs need for their assessment. A program portfolio is a source of evidence used to collect pieces of written and photographic evidence your program is using to show proof of meeting specific assessment items. Your program portfolio will include evidence of policies and practices that apply to the entire program. A class portfolio is a source of evidence used to collect pieces of written and photographic evidence for your program. Hello, this is the Portfolio Conversion webinar, where we will discuss how to convert your portfolios from the established accreditation model to the Streamlined Accreditation Model. In this webinar, you will learn what the new Streamlined Accreditation Model is, what are program and class portfolios, what the new standards look like, how the new assessment items are organized, how to create your new portfolios, additional tips and suggestions for your portfolios, and what resources are available for programs to utilize. A portfolio is a source of evidence that you will use to show proof that your programs are meeting the standards and assessment items. Programs will create both a program and class portfolio to show what practices are being done in the classroom and what policies and procedures are in place to ensure those practices are being met. Class and program portfolios make up 2 out of the 4 sources of evidence programs need for their assessment. A program portfolio is a source of evidence used to collect pieces of written and photographic evidence your program is using to show proof of meeting specific assessment items. Your program portfolio will include evidence of policies and practices that apply to the entire program. A class portfolio is a source of evidence used to collect pieces of written and photographic evidence your program is using to show proof of meeting specific assessment items. Programs may choose to organize their portfolios as they feel is best. Some examples of portfolios that programs use are binders, bins, and digital portfolios. It is best to note that NACCE does not currently have a license or contract with any specific digital portfolio software, and programs can choose to create their own digital portfolios using applications like PowerPoint. Evidence is defined as proof of supporting a claim or belief, any piece of information that supports a conclusion. The evidence that you compile into your portfolios is your proof that your program is following the best practices that you are being assessed on. Programs may use a variety of types of evidence, such as pictures with captions, handouts and forms used regularly in their program, and written documentation showing something has occurred or is being planned for. Your program portfolio evidence may include written program procedures. Some of your program procedures may also be found in staff and parent handbooks. Your program portfolio evidence may include the program's curriculum. Your program portfolio may also include an operating budget for your program. Your class portfolio evidence may consist of photographs of activities to show examples of what is being done in your classroom. Most pictures require additional captions. Your class portfolio evidence may include a daily schedule to show what has been prepared to do on a daily basis. Your class portfolio evidence may also include a weekly lesson plan to show how topics are being covered over time. Lesson plans are broadly defined as a guide for teaching staff to implement learning activities and opportunities. Lesson plans should include learning goals, methods or procedures for reaching the learning goals, and a method for measuring whether the learning goals were achieved. Lesson plans may be documented through written daily, weekly, or monthly planning documents, curriculum webbing, or reflection or evaluation documents. Programs who currently have portfolios made on the established standards and criteria have large, burdensome portfolios. Sometimes the portfolios are too large to carry and have more evidence than is needed for the assessed criteria. This is due to the vagueness in the current site visit criteria. Some criteria are listed as randomly assessed criteria, and programs must provide evidence for each criteria even if they will not be assessed on the criteria. Because there are less items being assessed during the site visit in the Streamlined model, programs should have a better experience with their portfolios. Your portfolios should be less burdensome and smaller. Less assessment items means less evidence. And because the items are now clear and concise and written to the type of evidence needed, you know exactly what and how many pieces of evidence to provide. It is also important to note that we did not remove any criteria from our standards, but that we reorganized the standards and criteria. We have rewritten our standards into narrative form with the current criteria as statements of best practice. The standards are still broken into topic areas, and each topic area includes all of the criteria that were best determined as best practice, but should not be assessed for the site visit. Additionally, we plan to have a self-assessment tool for programs to use while in their self-study and self-assessment phases. The criteria have now been tiered to what is easiest to some that are a little bit more difficult. This tool is to help programs determine where their implementation level is with the best practice standards and how much time they will need to move forward and be prepared for the site visit assessment items. As mentioned before, your portfolios should be smaller based on the number of items you are now being assessed on. We have been mentioning that the new assessment items are much more clear and concise and written to the type of evidence we would like you to provide. This is an example of item 5A895, formerly 5A09, which is regarding the hand hygiene policy for your program. please note that you must still highlight the section of the written document that meets the item. Assessment Item 1C54 was not only rewritten in clear and concise language, but also has been written to provide guidance to the type of evidence that you should provide. When an item says show or describe, this means that you may document the stated practice with a sample. For example, a caption photo, child work sample, form, or a lesson plan. Or you may provide a brief narrative description that specifically addresses how you meet the stated practice. It is acceptable to both show and describe if both are needed to adequately address the stated practice. Assessment Item 2A159 was also rewritten to directly state what type of evidence we would like to see for this item, also mentioning that you should highlight and label the areas on this document that meet the assessment item. We will now discuss how to create your new portfolios, whether you are brand new or have existing portfolios. Programs who have existing portfolios may want to consider creating a new portfolio and keep their old portfolio intact as an additional resource. Before creating the portfolio, it is important to identify where to begin. You should determine which type of portfolio you will use. Even programs who have existing portfolios can decide to try a new method if they felt their old method was too burdensome. Once you have determined what type of portfolio you will use for your evidence, get your portfolio tool so you can compile only the specific evidence for that portfolio. You will want to read and reread the assessment items, and then make necessary changes or revisions as needed. For your first step, you are going to decide which portfolio is best for your program. Then decide what organization tools you will use for your portfolio. If you choose to create a binder, should you use an index or table of contents? If you choose a bin, are you creating a folder for each item? If you choose to create a digital portfolio, which software will be easiest for your program to use and manipulate? All of these questions are important questions to ask in your first step to ensure a smooth creation or transition of your portfolios. As we move on to step 2, you want to grab the specific tool for the portfolio you are working on. Using these tools help programs know exactly what evidence to provide for that specific portfolio. It is important to note that the class portfolio tool is not broken down by age groups. Programs will need to make sure they are only providing evidence applicable to the age of that classroom. If you have an existing portfolio, you will still want to use the sources of evidence checklist to see the related criterion. Once you have decided which evidence you feel meets the item, ask yourself the following questions before placing the evidence in your portfolio. Does your evidence fully or partially meet the item? Is the evidence strong or weak? Step 3 may be your most important. In this step, you will determine the best piece of evidence to include in your portfolio. To help you decide whether the evidence you choose is the best piece of evidence you can provide, you should read the entire item and then reread the item to ensure what you understand the item is asking. Always have a fresh pair of eyes when looking at the item. If you are unsure, ask someone else to read the item to see what their understanding of it may be. Then ask yourself again, Does your evidence fully meet the item? And if not, do you need new evidence or do you need to revise what you currently have? Is your evidence strong? And if it isn't, is there another piece of evidence that would be better? You always want to provide the best examples of your program's practices. In your final step, look at each evidence you have answered the previous questions to and determine what type of change is necessary. After reviewing, you may determine that you should provide new, stronger evidence. You may also decide that the existing evidence needs necessary revisions to fully meet the item. Programs with existing portfolios should not assume that the evidence they have for the related criterion will meet the new assessment item. For programs who have existing portfolios, you should not assume that your current evidence may meet the new assessment items. For example, the two examples on this page are descriptions of trainings taken and the state document of an individual professional development plan. These examples of evidence also show how to poorly present your evidence. For the new assessment items in Standard 6, we are really looking for a comprehensive professional development plan and policy that includes each of the core topics. Notice how this program policy highlights and labels each area in the document that meets different assessment items. Next are some additional suggestions for do's and don'ts while creating your portfolios. While I mentioned you should read the item to ensure you understand the item, it is also important to identify how many examples you need to provide for each item. You will notice that some items only ask for one example, while others may ask for 2 examples. Putting in too little or too much can negatively impact the assessment of your portfolios. Always place the best piece of evidence, which should be the piece of evidence that fully meets the item. Ensure that you are only providing evidence for the item related to the age of the class portfolio you are working on. It's important to note that there are not specific class tools by age, and you should be looking to see if the item is assessed for your specific age group. And you should only provide evidence listed on the class and portfolio tools. While the sources of evidence checklist is a great resource for you to use, you should not use this to base which item you show evidence for. The don'ts you want to consider while creating your portfolio are the following. Do not provide more evidence than necessary, while some evidence may not give a direct number of examples to use. You should only use the evidence that best relates to the item. You want to use the quality versus quantity rule and determine whether each example adds positively to the evidence and is needed for a full picture of the example, or whether it could negatively impact the interpretation of the evidence provided. For programs who have existing portfolios, you do not want to keep old evidence in the portfolio to go with the new evidence. Following the steps of making necessary changes and revisions, your new piece of evidence should be better than the previous and should fully meet the item. Providing the old evidence can overshadow the new evidence and is unnecessary to have. Finally, you do not want to provide evidence for criteria in our current accreditation model. You should be using the class and program portfolio tool to help ensure you have exactly what is needed. Providing evidence for current criteria that are not assessed in the Streamlined model will add to the size of your portfolio and is also unnecessary for your site visit. Your portfolios will have less evidence to organize as you are assessed on less items for your site visit. Your current portfolios may have everything you need, but however you feel is best to convert your portfolios is up to you. You may decide to start over, or you may decide to pull out the evidence related to the item. Whichever you decide to do, make sure you are reading the item carefully and reviewing the evidence you currently have to ensure that it is fully meeting what the item is asking of you. Please use the following resources to help you organize your portfolios. This is the new Program Portfolio tool. This tool has the exact items that are being assessed in your program portfolio during the site visit. Programs will no longer have to provide evidence that are not clear on whether it is being assessed during the visit, as all assessment items listed on the tools will be assessed during the visit. This is the new Class Portfolio tool. It is important to note that the tools have been updated to reflect the term changes of groups to class. This tool also has the exact items that are being assessed during the site visit. This tool is not broken up by age groups, and programs should read each item to determine whether they need to provide evidence for that item. It is important to note that in our streamlined model, we no longer have criterion, but now have assessment items with assessment item numbers. All tools and resources that you have will have the topic area, 2A, with the assessment item next to it. Our sources of evidence checklist has been designed to now show you which criterion and indicator the new assessment item is related to. This is to help you identify evidence you may already have, and then determine whether you would use this piece of evidence or provide a new piece of evidence. As we have previously done, we also have new labels with the new assessment items and language for programs to use while developing their portfolios. Though labels are not required for creating your portfolios, it is highly suggested that you use them while organizing your portfolios and easily identifying the evidence you provided. There are frequently asked questions on our website under support that answer frequently asked questions regarding the Streamlined Accreditation Model. The Accreditation Training Center also has presentations and listen and learn webinars available on our website. We also offer on-site training where a NACCE representative can come to your program. The request form for the on-site training are also available in the Accreditation Training Center. Don't forget that your regional support contact is also a resource for you while creating your portfolios. Each staff member is available to answer your questions regarding any aspect of the Streamlined Accreditation Model and can help clarify any items you are struggling with. And always remember, we're here to help you through this process. You can call and speak to one of our program support members or reach out directly to your regional contact. You can schedule a consultation from the website where it is linked directly with your contact's calendar to ensure availability and schedule the call with them directly.